Listen up. There's no more excuses.
We're empowering those who want the hustle by exposing the status quo.
The days of ordinary are over.
It's time to crush mediocrity and start discovering your greatest potential.
Welcome to the Hustle Nation. To the Hustle Nation. To the Hustle Nation.
To the Hustle Nation. To the Hustle.
Welcome back to another episode of the Hustle Nation podcast. Today's episode is going to be a business autopsy, kind of a new series I'm going to dive into that I think is going to be a lot of fun. It's kind of like the failure files, but different. Today's topic is how the Amazon of the 1990s somehow missed the e-commerce wave. Before Amazon could deliver anything, almost anything to your house, Sears could deliver you the house. And I'm serious. There was a time when you could open a Sears catalog, choose the house you wanted, place an order, and receive the materials needed to build it. Lumber, windows, doors, shingles, hardware, instructions, thousands of pieces arriving by railroad. Between 1908 and 1940, Sears somehow sold around 70,000 to 75,000 homes this way. And homes were just one category. There was also clothing, furniture, tools, appliances, toys, musical instruments, farm equipment, bicycles, you name it. Sears had figured out something revolutionary, at least at the time. People didn't necessarily need to come to the store. You could show them an enormous selection of products while they sat at home. Let them place an order remotely, process the payment, and deliver the product directly to them. Does that sound familiar? Because decades before Amazon existed, Sears had basically built the analog version of e-commerce. And somehow, one of the companies best positioned to dominate online retail ended up filing for bankruptcy in 2018. So, what happened here? Today, we're performing a business autopsy on Sears. And the suspected cause of death is obviously Amazon.com. And Jeff Bezos. But once you open up the case, the story gets a lot more complicated. The original Amazon, let's go back all the way to 1886. Richard Sears was working as a railroad station agent in Minnesota when a shipment of watches arrived at a local jeweler they didn't want. Sears saw an opportunity. He bought the watches and started selling them to other railroad station agents. That was a side hustle, which eventually became a mail order watch company. Then Sears partnered with watchmaker Alva Roebuck, and the idea expanded. Why stop at watches, though? Remember what America looked like in the 1800s. A huge portion of the population lived in rural areas. If you lived on a farm, your local general store might have limited inventory and relatively high prices, as you could imagine. Sears changed that. Suddenly, selection wasn't limited to whatever happened to be sitting on a shelf in your hometown. Your store was a catalog. By the late 1900s, Sears catalogs contained more than 500 pages of merchandise. One early slogan called Sears the cheapest supply house on earth. That's basically 1980s Amazon positioning. Huge selection, competitive prices, convenience, delivery to your house, and Sears became very, very good at it. They built the infrastructure. Here's another part of the story people don't appreciate. Sears didn't just have a catalog. They built the infrastructure behind it. In 1906, Sears built a massive mail order complex in Chicago, covering roughly 3 million square feet. Think about what was happening inside that operation. Orders coming in from across America. Inventory management, warehousing, payment processing, packaging, shipping, customer service, distribution, logistics. Sears wasn't simply a retailer, it was a fulfillment machine. And this was before computers, before barcodes, before FedEx, before UPS looked anything like it does today. Before interstate highways, Sears was solving the exact logistical problem that would eventually make Amazon famous. How would we give people access to an enormous selection of products and efficiently get those products to them? And then they started selling houses. This is my favorite part. In 1908, Sears started selling home kits. Eventually, customers could choose from hundreds of designs. You'd pick your house from a catalog, place an order, and materials would arrive, typically by train. Some shipments reportedly required 2 railroad boxcars. And these weren't little backyard sheds, they were actual homes, bungalows, colonials, and multi story houses. Sears sold an estimated 70 to 75,000 of them between 1908 and 1940. There are still Sears houses standing around America today. Think about the level of customer trust required for that transaction. I mean, would you buy a home kit from Amazon today? I mean, I don't know. I certainly wouldn't buy one from Temu. Today, we're impressed when someone buys a couch online without sitting on it first. Sears convinced people, pick your house out of a book. We'll send it to you. That is incredible brand trust. Now, obviously, homes cost a lot more today than they did then, but it still takes a lot for someone to purchase and spend that kind of money sight unseen. Fast forward, Sears keeps evolving. And Sears didn't just get lucky once. This is important. When America changed, Sears reportedly changed with it. As Americans moved towards cities and automobiles became common, mail order wasn't enough anymore. So Sears opened stores. Its first retail store in Chicago in the 1920s. By the end of that decade, there was more than 300 stores. Eventually, Sears became an anchor of suburban America shopping malls. And they created brands people trusted. Craftsman, Kenmore, Die Hard, brands that still exist today. But Sears didn't stop at retail. In 1931, Sears created Allstate Insurance. Then, in the 1980s, Sears launched the Discover Card. Within 4 years, roughly 20 million people had one. Think about that. What Sears had now assembled: retail stores, mail order, distribution, fulfillment, trusted private label brands, consumer credit, insurance, customer relationships, millions of households, and an enormous amount of purchasing information. At its peak, Sears wasn't just a retailer. It was a clear ecosystem. And in 1969, Sears announced plans for a new headquarters in Chicago. When the Sears Tower opened in 1973, it was the tallest building in the world. That's how powerful this company was. Sears wasn't trying to become relevant. Sears was an American retail empire. And just to kind of go off script for a minute, it's interesting. A lot of those brands, I think all of them and that building still exist today. And then something changed. The warning signs started appearing long before Amazon became Amazon. Walmart, Kmart, Target, specialty retailers, big box stores. They started attacking pieces of Sears' business. Walmart became incredibly good at logistics and low prices. Home Depot and Lowe's specialized in home improvement, selling appliance, which was a big part of what Sears did. Best Buy focused on electronics. Other retailers became better at specific things Sears once offered under one roof. And in 1991, Walmart passed Sears as America's largest retailer. That's a major warning sign in our autopsy. Sears still had incredible assets, but the competitive advantage was clearly eroding. Then came one of the most fascinating decisions in the entire story. Come 1993, the catalog dies. In 1993, Sears shut down its famous general merchandising catalog operation. After roughly a century, it was over. Now, here's the timing that makes the whole story almost unbelievable. Sears shut down its catalog operations in 1993. Amazon got founded in 1994. Amazon began selling books online in 1995. Just think about that. I mean, that's almost 2 full years. One of America's greatest remote shopping infrastructures shuts down right before the greatest remote shopping is ever invented. I'm not saying Sears could have simply uploaded its catalog to the internet and automatically became Amazon. I doubt that happens. It's not always that simple and that easy. But look at what Sears already understood. People shopping from homes, centralized inventory, huge product selection, direct-to-consumer relationships. They had fulfillment, shipping, credit, returns, trusted brands. Sears didn't need someone to invent the idea of shopping without a store. They had spent a century proving it already worked. Lesson number 1, don't confuse your current delivery method with your actual business. This is where I think Sears offers an incredible leadership lesson. What business was Sears actually in? It's funny. A lot of businesses say we're like Domino's, we're in the pizza business. But they're really in the technology business. Were they a department store? Or was it helping American families conveniently get the products they needed at a good price? Because if it's the second answer, the catalog wasn't the business. The catalog was just the technology available at the time, even though it was a paper catalog. A website, a mobile app, these are all delivery mechanisms. The customer didn't disappear. The technology used to serve it changed. Businesses get into trouble when they become emotionally attached to how they currently create value instead of why the customer values them. Lesson 2, having assets isn't the same as having the strategy. This might be the craziest part of Sears. Imagine handing an entrepreneur this list: a nationally recognized brand, millions of customers, hundreds of stores, distribution infrastructure, home delivery, consumer financing, customer purchasing data, Craftsman, Kenmore, Die Hard, insurance experience, financial services experience, decades of direct-to-consumer experience, and saying the internet is about to change shopping. What could you build with all of this? You'd think, well, probably almost anything, if not everything. And then Sears eventually did build online capabilities. Sears.com was launched in 1999, and later, the company offered millions of products online, plus services such as store pickup and online returns. So, saying Sears simply missed the internet is inaccurate. The problem was bigger. The company couldn't transform those assets into a winning digital era retail strategy fast enough. And maybe they just didn't see it soon enough. Resources don't necessarily create strategy. Leadership does. Lesson number 3, you can cut costs until there's nothing worth saving. Then we get to the later Sears years. In 2005, Sears and Kmart came together under Sears Holdings, led by hedge fund manager Eddie Lampert. The theory was combining two struggling retailers could create efficiencies and unlock value. But Sears continued shrinking. Stores closed, headcount disappeared, investment became a constant issue, assets and brands were sold or separated. Meanwhile, customers walked into aging stores that incredibly looked like a company in decline. And boy, do I remember that. And that's another dangerous cycle. Sales decline. So you cut investment, the customer experience gets worse, so fewer customers come. Sales decline again, so you cut more. Eventually, you're not fixing the business, you're managing the decline. And if you recall walking into those retail stores, there were times, whether it be Circuit City, Kmart, wherever, there's fewer and fewer people to talk to and fewer products on the shelf. It's just not an experience that you'd want to go back to as a customer. Fast forward to the death of Sears. By 2018, Sears Holdings was still talking about website offering millions of products, store pickup, ship-to-home capabilities, and online purchases returned in stores. The digital pieces existed, but by then, the larger business was hemorrhaging. Sears had lost more than $11 billion since 2011. Hundreds of stores had disappeared, and on October 15th of 2018, Sears Holdings filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, 132 years after Richard Sears started selling watches. So, let's finish the autopsy. Sears, Roebuck and Company, at its peak, America's largest retailer and one of the most powerful corporations in the country. Symptoms consist of loss of market leadership, increasing competition, aging stores, strategic drift, declining sales, cost cutting, asset sales, failure to translate historic advantages into digital dominance. Suspected cause of death? Amazon. And I would argue, leadership. Actual cause of death? Much more complicated. Amazon didn't walk into a perfectly healthy Sears and kill it. Sears had been losing competitive ground for years before Amazon became dominant. Stores like Home Depot and Lowe's were specializing in home improvement. They were competing at a better level with better prices on appliances. You had far more auto zones around the world selling things like car batteries and wheels and tires. There were so many places that they were losing. They just weren't seeing it because they were dying a slow death. Sears had been losing the competitive ground for years, and Amazon just accelerated a transformation that Sears wasn't prepared to win. But Walmart mattered. Specifically, retailers mattered. Management decisions mattered. And underinvestment also mattered. Changing consumer behavior was a big issue, and years of decline also mattered. Could Sears have been saved? I think the easy answer is yes. And that's a fascinating question because Sears had so many of the ingredients to be successful. Imagine if Sears had looked at the internet in the mid 1990s and said, this isn't a threat to our old catalog business. This is our catalog business on steroids. Different technology, same fundamental idea. What if Sears had aggressively rebuilt itself around that? Stores become pickup and return centers. Catalog infrastructure becomes e-commerce fulfillment. Craftsman, Kenmore, DieHard become digital first brands. Consumer data power personalization. And financial services that make transactions easier. Home services connect products with installation. Maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But it seems like it would. It's almost so crazy that I would want to bet on it working. And Amazon still became an extraordinary competitor early on, before it's anything like what it was today. Walmart still had incredible scale, but Sears had a head start most companies could only dream of. The tragedy isn't that Sears couldn't predict the future, it's that so much of its past already looked like the future. And that's the leadership lesson I'd leave you with. Sometimes companies fail because they don't have what they need, but sometimes they have almost everything they need and still can't put the pieces together. Sears understood shopping from home. It understood enormous selection. It understood fulfillment. It understood customer trust. It understood private label brands and credit and even delivery. Hell, it understood delivering homes, which no other businesses could probably figure out. What it couldn't do was translate all of those advantages into leadership of the next era of retail. So here's the question. What capability already exists inside of your business that could become incredibly valuable tomorrow? But you're still thinking about it through yesterday's business model. Because having all the ingredients for the future isn't enough. Just because you have the tools, the people, the resources, doesn't mean it happens or comes to life. You can recognize what you're looking at. You just still have to recognize what you're looking at. The cause of death for Sears is failure to turn historic advantages into a strategy for the next era. That's this week's business autopsy. And the thing I like to say about Sears that I haven't really mentioned yet on a personal note is that it's just a lot of people being romantic about the way things used to be. Sears and a lot of retailers died a slow death because they chose not to see what was happening. They chose to think that decline in retail and store visits were just a wave. People didn't buy into the internet. Instead of getting excited and testing the waters, they chose to be romantic about the way things used to be and the way that things should continue to be. And being romantic about things is very hard, especially as we age. And I know people look at it and say, oh, we don't like change. But if we're willing to adapt and we're willing to test the waters and something doesn't work, almost no harm, no foul. But if it did work, we'd be talking about Sears as Amazon today. That's the crazy part. And we'd hate for that to happen to your business. So thanks for tuning in to another episode. We'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.